Okay, so I'm speaking today because somebody wrote an email. It's not my favorite topic. The email was just saying there's been so much hurt, so much harm over the weekend that it would be very helpful to hear something soothing, or hopefully soothing. Because as you know, there have been 2 mass shootings over the weekend. There was another one last weekend. There was something else at another Walmart not too long ago. But just for ourselves, I think 2 things are important: that we really show up at the ballot box and we elect people who want to have gun violence, gun reform, and stop the gun violence, and have research, and pass legislation. The House has passed several bills since they took control, but Mitch McConnell won't even allow there to be a vote in the Senate. The Senate has passed an exceptionally low number of bills in this last term. The only thing Mitch McConnell seems determined to do is to get a lot of Trump's justice appointments confirmed. He thinks that will influence the justice system for many decades to come. So, whatever we can do to get senators and people in the House elected who want gun reform, and however we can support the doctors and the government agencies that are seeing gun violence as an epidemic, as a health concern, instead of just shoving it off into making everything about the Second Amendment, which, by the way, there's no Second Amendment right to have assault weapons on the street. Yeah. But, to really see that this is a public health epidemic, not only because of the mass shootings, but actually more people are killed in suicide with guns than in mass shootings. The mass shootings are more shocking, when you can't even go to a Walmart to buy a notebook without endangering your life, or you can't go out on Saturday night to enjoy, without endangering your life. But what about all the people who very impulsively suicide because the guns are so easily available, and how the great loss of life from that, and the trauma to the families of the families who are suicide survivors. So to be able to stop that. This is also a time, I think, emphasizing again where we need to talk to each other. As people have been saying, thoughts and prayers are certainly not enough. We need action. But the good things about the prayers and the vigils is they bring people in a community together. And when everybody's grieving a loss because of gun violence, it doesn't matter what party they belong to. That's not a partisan affair. Grief is grief, and if a community can come together and share their grief and support each other, it brings some kind of feeling of community, which we really need in this country. And this kind of thing, again, it emphasizes to us the importance of our practice, the importance of there being a group of people who conscientiously and consciously cultivate compassion, cultivate forgiveness, cultivate love. So we need to really do that in our practice much more and then share that with others. Now I want to tell you another story, okay, that I just read, that is showing more how people in a community who are mostly probably strangers can come together for something good. So over the weekend in, I think it was Nashville, Tennessee, yeah? So mind you, this is the South, yeah? So ICE came to the home of one Latino family. It seems like the father and the 12-year-old son were in their car, and the ICE van pulled up right behind the car in the driveway so they couldn't leave. It seems like the mother and the other family members were in the house. So the man, the Latino man in the car, who was undocumented, he knew his rights, and he knew that ICE did not have a federal thing with a judge's signature. They only had an administrative order. And with that, they are not allowed to enter your vehicle or enter your house. So the ICE officers came to his window and said, "Get out of the house, otherwise, get out of the vehicle, otherwise we're going to detain you." But he knew his rights, and he sat there, okay, with his son in the car. And they didn't get out. ICE stayed there for about 4 hours. Yeah, the neighbors noticed. They filled up his gas tank so he could keep running the aircon because it was outrageously hot in Tennessee in the summer. They brought cold water. They brought cold rags. They brought snacks, you know. And they just sat in the car, and the neighbors brought all this stuff. It was a working class area, and it seemed to be well integrated. You know, in the picture, there were blacks and whites and, you know, everybody there. So the neighbors just saw this happening. They came and helped out. Finally, after about 4 hours, the ICE left, but they were very suspicious that they would come back. So what the neighbors did is they formed a human chain around the man and his child, going to the door of the house so they could go back in, get their stuff, and the whole family could come back and get in the car, encircled by this human chain of their neighbors, and then the family fled. Yeah? But with all this loving kindness showed by the neighbors. Yeah? Putting a human chain to protect them. So, when you hear stories like that, yeah, then you realize, that, we all want the same kind of country. We want a country where people are free. We want a country where people are not detained, unnecessarily, where people who are really seeking asylum, or even seeking a better life, where they can come and have a better life or have asylum and be safe. And that, if there's a way where we can appeal to people's kindness on an individual level like this, then people come forth with kindness. Yeah, and they come forth with support. It's on the level of, the media and speaking where so much of the division happens. And then that division, of course, fuels some of the physical violence that we saw over this weekend. Okay? So, yeah. let's do what we can to create the bonds with the people that we share the community with, and to really stick up for each other.